Architecture Codex. If you want to see more, like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe.
I wish I could attribute the architectural theory that says that great organizations tend to build their greatest building right before their entire empire collapses. Some say the building of St. Peter's so strained the Catholic Church that the Protestant Reformation was inevitable. In more recent times, we have seen corporate bodies such as General Foods, Architectural Codex No. 7, and the New York Times suffer financially after building amazing headquarters. Some are holding their breath now that Apple has built that spaceship donut in Cupertino, California. In 1976, the Canadian National Railway built the CN Tower in Toronto just before they were subdivided by the Canadian federal government. The original purpose of the tower was twofold: a transmission tower to coordinate the operations of the Canadian National Railway and for other broadcasters, but also as an attraction to that end of Toronto to spur further development. What distinguished this from the other tallest buildings being built at the time was that it did not have floors of offices below it. It was a tower with an observation deck and a broadcast facility only. Since it was built, it has realized its purpose of becoming an anchoring attraction. Surrounding it today are Ripley's Aquarium and the Sky Dome Rogers Center, the home of the Blue Jays, among other attractions. There is a certain arbitrariness when trying to decide what is the tallest building and what is the tallest structure. As far as I can tell, the judges on this are self-appointed, and they compile their own data in order to put together their lists. For example, a tall building cannot count an antenna towards its height unless you fancy up the antenna enough to call it a spire. And while a building is not a tower, towers that hold antennas do count the antenna towards their total height calculation. Always splitting hairs, which is something I have not been able to do for years, there is a list that distinguishes freestanding towers such as the CN Tower from those that achieve their heights with stabilizing cables, such as the formerly 2,063-foot tall KVLY TV mast in North Dakota. It was once the tallest structure in the world. It was surpassed in 1974 by the Warsaw radio mast, but that collapsed in 1991 along with the Soviet Union. The Dakota Tower has since been surpassed by buildings, including the 2,073-foot Shanghai Tower in 1976, the CN Tower with its antenna topped off at 1,815.3 feet was the tallest freestanding structure on Earth. It has been since surpassed by many buildings. Currently, the title holder is the Burj Khalifa in the United Arab Emirates, which houses residences, offices, and hotels. In the future, the Jeddah Tower under construction in Saudi Arabia will reach 3,307 feet, or essentially 1 full kilometer. Organized by Bud Andrews, the CN Tower design team included engineer Roger Nicolette, working with architect John Andrews. In association with Webb Zarafa, they abandoned the early 3-leg design for one with 3 sloping concrete legs radiating from the center, where they linked. These legs were formed by an ever-increasing series of slip forms, about 2 stories in height, that would set concrete and move up to do it again. The topping off and the antenna were done by helicopter. In the race upward, the title tallest building in the world is at best a fleeting achievement. At some point, the integrity of the architecture, the beauty and elegance of how that height was achieved, needs to be the enduring element. The CN Tower achieves that in a modernist eye to the future that liked concrete and metal. Like many towers for cities built in the past, the CN Tower has become, justifiably, the proud visual identity of Toronto and will endure for many decades. There is a grace to the CN Tower because it was freed of having to have a practical application on its lower floors. The sloping structure stem is like the exposed stalk of a flower, and like a closed bud on its top is that observation pod. The tourist-oriented observation decks have various accommodations depending on whether you want to look, snack, dine, or lean over an open-air railing with a protective net below, or stand safely behind sloping glass. You can even pay for the privilege of walking outside along the edge of the top deck with a substantial tethered harness for safety. And that seems to be a new trend among the tall towers trying to attract tourists. If there's not much of a skyline, you can go for a bit of daring and walk on glass over 1,000 feet above the ground. Hudson Yards in New York City, Architecture Codex number 4, features The Edge, which hovers over the ground below and has a portion of the deck which is also glass. They added one to the Willis Tower, formerly the Sears Tower, and many of the other towers around the world feature such amenities designed to test your acrophobia. Having parachuted and bungee jumped a couple of times, I have less to prove at my age. And I might take advantage of these daring attractions if the price and the timing are right. Otherwise, there is another challenge to consider, which I have made good at many of the great historic buildings and towers throughout the world, and that is to use the restroom at the highest possible elevation. I'm Michael Molinelli, and this is Architecture Codex.